What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV here to review the shit show, which was Crystal Palace away yesterday. It finished 1-0 to Palace, and the away day woes definitely continue for Spurs, which follows a really disastrous pattern now under Ange Postecoglou about the away games as well. It kind of predates Ange Postecoglou, but I think the stat is, what was it, 4 or 6 away day wins or something in the past year or something crazy like that?
I think it was less than that.
4?
I think it was on like 3 in the past 12 months or something.
Which is mad.
Yeah. 3 in the last 24 games.
No, 3 in 2024.
3 in 2024.
3 wins away from home in 2024, which is shocking. And the away wins in 2024 have been Sheffield United at the back end of last season, Manchester United, and what was the other one?
Sheffield United, Villa.
And Villa.
2 of them were 10 men.
Yeah,
Albeit
which is,
we were ahead before they went down to 10 men.
yeah, but still, it's absolutely disastrous. Our away form at the moment, 2-0 up at Brighton a couple of weeks ago, and we saw a clear lack of fight in the second half in that game. In this game, I think we saw a bit of a lack of fight throughout the game, and we just got completely outfought in the game against Crystal Palace. It just seemed like they wanted it a lot more. They were up for the game a lot more than us. We couldn't play out of their press. We couldn't play out the back by any stretch of the imagination. The passing was sloppy. I mean, I struggle to look at that night. At least, like in games where we've lost, you can cling on to some good things in the game. Where at Brighton, obviously, you can cling on to that first half. But in this game, I mean, it's hard to cling on to anything.
Yeah, it was a terrible day for us. I think it's fair to say Ange, after the game, getting a little bit touchy with the interviewer as well. Clearly, he wasn't happy with the performance. Obviously, the fans after the game booing the players after the players came over to the supporters at the end of the game. It was a terrible day all round, and Spurs really struggled to get up to speed from minute 1. Really, tactically, we were basically second best. I think we were probably caught off guard by Crystal Palace by some stretch, because Palace have not played like that all season. They've definitely been a side who haven't really pressed. They've been backing off quite a bit. They've given the opposition a bit more possession, and against us it was a very different reality. They were much more aggressive, much more on the front foot, much more willing to exploit us. The wing backs were getting very, very high up. Eze was, playing a lot better than he has for a lot of games this season, and we really struggled to deal with them, to be honest. And I think, first we were sloppy playing out the back, but also I think maybe we didn't expect Palace to, be as they were, which was, man to man, super aggressive, making sure we can't play through the lines, and we pretty much had no answer. The only kind of joy we had was going directly to Solanke, and even then he would beat his man, and then he would have very little options to play with. He would usually get out wide to Johnson, and his cross would be blocked, or that would usually be the pattern of play. But Solanke was the only one who actually was winning his one-on-one duel more often than not, and actually doing something for the team. And it was a real frustrating watch, because Palace, this is obviously a game going into it, Palace being near the bottom of the table. You expect, albeit I was saying before the game, Palace are in a false position. This is going to be a very, very difficult game. And I was a bit worried going into this game, just because tactically I know what Palace can give you. And if they're on their game, it's going to be a very difficult one. I didn't expect it to be that difficult, though. I didn't expect it, we had very, very little. Albeit, when I did watch the highlights after the game, watched it back, we had a few more chances than I remember being in the stadium. And probably, on another day would have taken one of those. But when you compare that to the chances that Palace created, and how we, especially in the final half an hour after those changes, we offered very, very little, to be honest. Like when we're trying to put Palace under pressure, if anything, it looked like Palace were going to get a second rather than Spurs were going to equalise. So, look, really frustrating day, really bad day at the office. And Ange will have to learn from it, because, as you say, the away day results are nowhere near good enough. And it's another occasion where away from home, we've looked quite soft.
Yeah, and you could see where the issues were going to come from in the first 20 minutes of the game when Palace were putting it upon us. Yeah, we had those chances where I think we hit the post and forced a good save out of Henderson through, I think it was Maddison and Brennan Johnson having both those chances. But I mean, apart from that, I think Kulusevski might have had a shot in the second half. I mean, apart from that, Palace completely dominated us throughout that 90 minutes. And the most worrying thing in that game is that you could see what was going wrong throughout that first half. And we did nothing to change the game. I know we put two men up front with about 25 minutes to go with Richarlison coming on. But then you took out all our guns in the middle of the park. We had no sort of creativity in the middle. We were relying on Timo Werner on the left and Brennan Johnson on the right. Timo put in an okay shift, but still the lack of quality was clearly there. Brennan couldn't lay a glove on them for the 90 minutes that he was on the pitch. And if you're going to make those changes and change up the system, I'm all for it, but you need to leave a bit of creativity in the middle of the park. And I think it was the right decision to take Kulu off at that time. But if you're going to take Kulu off, you have to keep Maddison off. You have to keep Maddison on.
I think you have to leave one of them on, in my opinion. I don't really mind which one. I know Decky wasn't having a great game, but if you give him a bit of protection near him, like with Basuma and Sal, maybe he doesn't have to do so much defensive work, and maybe he can focus on going forward. So maybe if that changes, he doesn't commit as many fouls as he was before. Or you leave Maddison on, who nearly scored a goal early in the game, and could always pull something out the bag. So I think taking them both off was a bit of a mistake from Ange. I understand he felt he just needed to completely rejig the system. He felt Solanke by himself up against three centre-backs just wasn't working, and he wanted two there. But
Solanke wasn't even up front. He was in the middle of the park. He was playing as a midfielder in this game. He was literally playing as a midfielder. Whenever we lumped it long to him, he was always on the halfway line, and he was trying to be our chief creator with no one up front. I mean, it was madness what we were doing.
Yeah, because he wasn't getting any joy. If he stayed too far back, there's three big centre-backs there who is going to be very difficult to get a lot of joy from. So maybe what I would have done if I was Ange in that scenario is probably just matched up Palace, just gone three at the back, and so we can actually deal with the build-up a bit more. Get Porro and the Doggy being wing-backs. Maybe gone for a 3-5-2 kind of formation. Gone three at the back, bring on Radu. So you've got Radu, Romero, Van de Ven at the back. You've got Porro, Doggy wing backs. You got, maybe if you want to get another striker on, you get Richarlison and Solanke. And then the middle three, you bring on Sal for more legs. You keep one of Maddison or Decky on, and you have Basuma there. That's probably what I would have done. And all of a sudden, I think that solves a few of the issues we have in the build-up. And I think it also gives us a bit more threat against their three defenders. You've got two big strikers in there now who can maybe do something. And if you keep Decky on as well, you've got someone who can also pull out wide, and you've got creative force, or if you've got Maddison on there as well. But going 4-4-2, I actually thought killed the game a bit, because I thought, yes, we were struggling, don't get me wrong, and we do need to change something. But as soon as we went 4-4-2, it felt like the struggles we were having in build-up were kind of even compounded. I felt like they got even worse in that last half an hour. And I felt Palace's formation and their outnumbering of us in certain situations kind of was doubled down on when we changed formation. And yes, maybe we got Werner and Johnson in a few more situations after the changes, but we had nothing in the centre. It felt like Sarr and Bentancur or Basuma's only job was pretty much to facilitate getting balls into Werner and Johnson. They had nothing themselves to do anything down the centre. They were outnumbered they had the two centre mids and obviously the three centre backs. And I just don't think the changes worked to any effect, to be honest. I don't think it changed it positively, and I think he got them wrong. And I think he should have considered with Palace. I think the big problem actually, obviously, we were struggling, we were sloppy. But I actually think Palace made us look sloppy. I actually think it was more to do with what Palace were doing rather than what we were doing. And I know it's easy to see Spurs giving the ball away and say we're just being sloppy, but it wasn't, a lot of the time, it wasn't just us playing out of play. It was Palace being super aggressive and going man-to-man and catching us off guard. And I actually think a lot of it was to do with Palace doing a lot of surprising things and doing things we didn't expect, and all of a sudden we had some struggles that we probably didn't expect to have. And I think going into half-time, I think Ange looked at it and say, okay, what we're going to do is going to bring on Radu and we're going to match them up for formation. And as soon as we match them up, I think their tactical advantages disappear, and that's where we can get the advantage, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you say that we kept getting caught off guard and kept getting caught by surprise by Crystal Palace and how strong they're pressive and how aggressive they were, which, you know, definitely have a point there. But like, how long can it keep going until you keep getting surprised? And why did we keep persisting with playing the same way and just keep getting caught off guard every single time? Vicario's playing out the back was shocking. Van der Ven, Romero, all of them. Porro, his build-up play was absolutely shocking. I mean, we couldn't build up for love nor money throughout the whole 90 minutes. I mean, fine, get caught off guard for the first 10 minutes or 10, 15 minutes. But you've got to learn through the game. You've got to make a few adjustments, whether it's players on the pitch making those adjustments or Ange telling them from the sidelines. Like, there has to be some sort of learning throughout those 90 minutes, and there was none of that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And he, as I say, he tried to change it in the second half, and the changes, in my opinion, backfired, and it probably got even worse once we made the changes. So we didn't adapt to the situation correctly, in my opinion. And I think, look, Palace, in my opinion, actually had a really good game and a much better game than they've played throughout the season. And if I want to illustrate my point for how different Palace played, if you go to their last game, bring up the phone. You can go to their last game when they played Forest away. Go to their average position. Go to at the top, the average position. Go to Palace. Look how deep they are. Everyone's in their own half. This is against Forest, who are a team, right, who like to sit deep in themselves, right? So they're very deep. Pretty much two players or three players in with an average position inside the Forest half. You got Commander there, obviously. I don't know who's that right at the front. Nketiah. So you got Nketiah up front, joined by Eze. But look how deep the wing backs are. Mitchell, Muniz in their own halves. I don't know who the wide forward is. Maybe it was Kamada, but he looks like he was playing centrally. So look, basically my point is look how far back they are. And now you go to the Spurs game, and look how different their average positions are here. Look, everyone's in the opposition half. Look how high the wing backs are in the opposition half. You got Sarr there on the right now. You got Mateta and Eze a bit wider. So completely different, essentially, to how they are playing against Nottingham Forest, and the Forest game is essentially how they've been playing most of the season. So they did completely switch up this time. I don't know whether it's because they looked at Tottenham and felt if we push high, maybe we can get them. Maybe that was the feeling with Crystal Palace, or maybe it's just because they're so desperate for a win, they just needed to go for it a bit and actually not just play pragmatic like they've been all season. Which I thought they would do, and actually it worked against us in a way, because I thought them coming forward would leave a few gaps, but actually them coming forward meant we really struggled with our build-up and we won't be able to play through them. So, yeah, I think that was a good illustration of how Palace did really catch us off guard in this game.
Yeah, and they pushed us completely back. Look how low we were sitting for the majority of the game. I mean, the game was more or less, for a large portion of it, played in our half. I mean, we just could not handle Eberechi. Eze was running rings around a lot of our players yesterday.
And another problem, which I kind of thought we might have in the preview, which definitely came to pass, was the wing-backs. I said before the game, Ange has got to figure out how we deal with these wing-backs, because do our wingers track back these wing-backs, right? Or is it? But they're going to be very wide, so they're going to be very much like wingers a lot of the game, right? So does that mean that our wingers are going to be pretty much like fullbacks for a lot of the game? Or does our fullbacks go over to the wing backs, and that means you've got two inside forwards like Eze and Sarr, who are playing very much kind of to the wing, but also very much inside as well at times, especially Eze. If the fullbacks are taking them up, then that are taking up the wing back, that means there's going to be all sorts of spaces for Eze and for Sarr, especially if we're going to play Maddison and Kulusevski in the middle, who are not, as much as they do our work, they work hard, they're not defensively minded, they're not defensively aware. Yes, they'll press and they'll work and they'll run for you and they'll put in challenges, don't get me wrong, I don't question their work ethic, but it's all about being defensively aware, knowing where the danger is, knowing where the runs are, not losing your men, keeping concentration. And that's where people like Sarum, Basuma and Bentacle really come in. That's what their strengths are. Obviously, Maddison Decky, that's not where their strengths are going to be. That's why I kind of called for playing Sarr in this game, because I really felt that wing-back problem was going to be a really big issue if we didn't do that, because Maddison and Decky if it's going to be, I had a feeling he would put the fullbacks on the wing backs. I just had a feeling, and he kind of did that. And if they're able to do that, it's going to mean that our midfield is really going to have to dig in and make sure Eze and Sarr are not picking up the ball. And they didn't do that. Eze was getting all sorts of time and space on the ball. It was so easy to find him as well. And also the wing backs. Whenever Porro or Uruguay were tucking inside, the wing backs had all sorts of spaces out wide as well. And every time that switcher play was on, every single time, and we just didn't know how to deal with it, and we didn't switch up. That's why I would have just matched their formation if I was Ange. I know it sounds simple, but and maybe that's not a formation we're used to. But in this kind of game, when they're getting all these tactical advantages from having wing backs and inside forwards, if you just match them up, we've got a better player in each position. We can just go man for man, and all of a sudden it takes away some of their tactical advantages. So that's what I would have done, but we really struggled to deal with them tactically, I felt.
It's just not good enough. I mean, I get what you're saying about all the tactical situations, and look, you're probably spot on in what you're saying, but it's just too many times now where things don't go well for Spurs and we get outfought in games. You can never get outfought in games. It's nowhere near good enough. How is Ange allowing this team to get outfought in games, and particularly away games, which is happening time after time now? I mean, when you look at all the problems that we had yesterday, it was a clusterfuck of problems from the manager to the players to everything, everyone involved. It was just an absolute shit show what happened on that pitch yesterday. And how do you explain just getting outfought on the pitch? Like, how do Palace want that more than us?
Because they're a team right down at the bottom. They're fighting for their lives, and they're a very strong team. They're a much better team than the table gives them credit for.
Are we not a better team than what the table gives us credit for?
We're also a better team than what the table gives us credit for. But this game was a bad day, absolutely, and there's no doubt about it. It's very disappointing.
How many times are we just going to put it down to bad days at the office? We're talking about 4 wins away from home in 2024, and every single time we sit here and say, oh, it was just a bad day at the office.
Not every time. Sometimes it's structurally, and sometimes it's not just a bad day. Sometimes Ange's got to take blame, and Ange's got to take blame. Look, he takes responsibility for all our defeats. Yesterday was a really bad day. But I think because Palace and are down the bottom are in 18th, it makes it seem the defeat more embarrassing than it was. I think Palace actually are quite a good team. I expect them to climb the table and probably finish a lot higher than. I don't think they're going to be in a relegation battle this season. I think they're going to be well clear of it. I think they're a much better team than the table gives them credit for. And I think we just got out-tacticked yesterday. We got completely outdone. I think Palace did a job on us. They planned for this game. They were absolutely up for it. You can see how much it meant to them. They needed a win after not winning any games in their first 8 games. And we didn't have an answer. And that is worrying. That is worrying that Ange didn't have any solutions in this game. We didn't really have any periods where we looked like we were going to be on top. And it didn't really look like we had any periods where looked like we were going to score, apart from maybe a bit in the first half where we hit the post and Maddison had that shot which was saved. So there was a little period in the first half. But apart from that, Palace completely took advantage of all their tactical advantages. And on top of that, they got big, strong players who are difficult to deal with. Eze on his day, can have that kind of game. He's that good. You got Lacroix, Guehi, and Chalobah, who are all 3 very big, strong and fast centre-backs, and clever on the ball as well. They're all very good on the ball. So it's when we're trying to press them, it was very difficult to press that 3 at the back, especially how we were doing it. And then from our side, Decky and Maddison were not winning their individual duels well enough. In fact, if anything, they were committing too many fouls, and they were not being aware of Eze and Sarr enough. Wharton was getting too much time on the ball. I felt Mikey Moore, and Johnson, both of the wingers, they didn't know how to deal with it. Do they try and play on the outside of the wing backs, or do they try and play in between the lines, in between the wing back and the wide centre back? And in fact, actually, if we're looking at some of the highlights, Mikey Moore probably did some of the best stuff there, because some of his passing led to the 2 chances we created, actually. And he was the one maybe looking for little solutions on those wide areas. But I think because when they were defending, they were a back 5, it meant those wingers were kind of obsolete, because they had, not only did they have a wing back to beat, but if they did beat that wing back, they got a wide centre back coming over to kind of cover that space as well. So that's where you need someone like Maddison, Decky to come over and help, and they just weren't doing enough of that. And even if they did, they had the likes of Wharton, Lerma, or who was the other guy who came on? Will Hughes, who was coming on and covering that. We just couldn't get any advantages, any overloads, which is what our game was based on. Our game is based on getting overloads in certain situations, and we weren't able to engineer the pitch to do that. And then from when we were building up, it was shocking, basically, because Palace were pressing very high up, again with their wing-backs. If you look at the goal we conceded, first of all, from first comes to first, it's very sloppy from both our centre-backs. What is Romero doing, that lofted pass to Van de Ven? It's so sloppy, it's so lethargic, it's so like... You always learn, from very young, not to play a stupid pass across the face of goal like that. If you're going to do it, probably go back to Vicario, who can just give it to Van de Ven. Or there was a pass forward to Basuma on if he did that. He just instead does a lofted pass. And I think if I'm giving some grace to Van de Ven, the only reason I can think why he might have miscontrolled it is probably he suffered from what we were all suffering from, is when he looked at the ball, the sun might have gone in his eyes. That's the only reason I can think of why he doesn't take it down in the first time, because he kind of lets it bounce.
He lets it run past him.
But he could have taken it down. But I don't know why he kind of hesitated. Was it because the sun was blinding him? I don't know. I can't. That's the only thing I can think of. And because he doesn't take it down and make it comfortable, all of a sudden the ball is bouncing, and he has to rush that pass to down the line when he didn't really have any options anyway. And it led to him slipping. He didn't get good contact on the ball. Munoz, who I'm saying, the wing backs were very much pushed on because of how aggressive they were. It was Munoz who won it forward, and he was the one who obviously picked it up. And they get the goal from it. But by the way, I have to say, as much as the goal should never have happened, what a touch from Eze. Unbelievable. Back heel volley pass into Mateta inside the box. I think, yes, Romero completely loses Mateta. I think Romero thinks that Eze is going to volley it, so he's rushing to Eze to close him down. But what a piece of skill from Eze. I think it's gone under the radar. What an assist that was, because he back heels it into Mateta, who obviously goes and scores, and he was free because Romero left him free because Romero thought he was going to volley it. But yeah, unbelievable assist from Eze. I have to say.
Yeah, look, it was an unbelievable piece of individual quality from Eze. And Eze, like I said, was running rings around us pretty much all afternoon. I thought he was brilliant. Definitely put in his best display of the season. But we should never have let it get to that situation. You know, Romero should either pass it back to Vicario or clear his lines and play out the back, which we know he can. But it was just shocking all round. And you're looking at it now with Ange Postecoglou, and I've been a big believer, and I still am a big believer of Ange. I'm a big believer of believing in the project and trusting the process and all like that. But every Spurs manager, in terms of results, have been sacked for less than Ange Postecoglou right now in the past 12 months. There's been no manager that has come in since one day Ramos that has got less points than Ange in the last 12 months.
Yeah, I never like these stats though, because they always take a 12-month period and they select at any point. There might have been points under Pochettino where this isn't a stat that says that given any 12-month period.
It's a manager's last 12-month period.
This is Ange's last 12 months, but when we're comparing all the other managers, Ramos, Pochettino, whatever, Redknapp, we're only taking their full seasons. We're not taking any 12-month period in their tenure. So maybe Pochettino in his halfway through his first season, halfway through the second, he might have had a bad 12-month period.
But their last 12 months would have been their worst periods as Spurs managers.
Is
the
it
managers
the last 12
that got
months?
sacked. Yeah, the last 12 months.
Our last 12 months, not
any last 12 months of any manager.
Is that the stat?
Apparently so, yeah.
I thought it was just, their seasons.
No, it's the last 12. Well, no, I think it was the last 12 months of every manager.
All right, well, this is what a rebuild looks like.
Yeah, and like I said, I believe in Ange, but the results need to get drastically better because we are slipping behind at the moment. I know it's early in the season, but every single time teams lose, and this isn't even just under Ange, this is just a Tottenham problem that has been over the years. But under Ange, it has been highlighted even more. Like when the teams around us drop points, We always go out there and have a stinker and lose the game or draw the game and stuff. We can never take advantage of teams losing around us, and it's just so frustrating, man. It's so frustrating. Like, why these results happen? Why have we lost 4 games already this season? It's nowhere near good enough.
Yeah, and I'm sure Ange knows that. If anything, Ange is probably most critical of himself more than anything. I think he's aware of that, and it is frustrating. Obviously, when we're fans, we're travelling up and down the country, and especially we're going away from home against a team like Palace. You expect much better than what we saw yesterday, of course. But this is all part of the learning process. Each game gives different problems, and sometimes you find solutions, sometimes we don't. And yesterday we didn't. It was a team who definitely played a back five. They pressed high and they definitely caught us off guard. And we've got to learn from that. Other defeats have been different problems. Newcastle was a different problem. We were able to beat their press, but we just couldn't finish our chances. Brighton was a different problem. We were 2-0 up and we were in cruise control and we let the game completely slip away from us. This was a different problem than those games. So as much as it's frustrating, as much as 4 defeats in 9 games is not good, I still believe we're heading in the right direction. I still giving Ange the benefit of the doubt at the moment, because I like the way we play football by and large. Days like yesterday are hard to take, and it's hard to explain sometimes why things go so wrong. And it was a very difficult game, and it was one of those games where, as Ange said, I think after the game, very stop-start, very hard to get into your rhythm and maintain momentum. And every single time that every time we're building something, the game stops for another few minutes and players are standing around, and we didn't kind of react to that well. We didn't adjust to that situation well, and we allowed the game to go into Palace's favour. And that is something that we've got to learn from, and we've got to adjust to 100%. But I still if you look at 12 months, it's not a good situation. If I'm looking in seasons individually, last season we finished 5th. This season, at the moment, we're 9th, but we're not that far from the 4th place, or we're not a few wins and all of a sudden you're back, you're challenging for top 4 again. So I think this 9 games in is very, very tight at the moment. The league table, things change very, very quickly. So our away form definitely has to improve. We can't keep having results like this or performances like this away from home and think that we can challenge for big things when we do that. But I'm still very positive all these things can improve.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm backing Ange and I think it can improve, but I am losing hope a little bit with the 2 away games that we've just had in Brighton and Crystal Palace. You look at our next few away games, we've got Man City away, Bournemouth away, 2 very difficult games to contend with, and it's hard to think that we can get anything out of those games playing the way that we have been doing in these 2 away games in Brighton and Crystal Palace. And we've got a very hard run of fixtures now, and you're seeing already they were getting a bit toxic in the away end yesterday. At the end of the game, fans with the players coming over booing them and quite viciously booing them. Some guy walked past us and was like, "Ange out, get Ange out now." And I don't believe that we should be getting Ange out now. But with the fixtures that we have now, at what stage? Daniel Levy is notoriously quick sometimes on pulling the trigger. Do you think if we go on a bad run now, Man City at home in the Cup, Villa at home in the league, Galatasaray away, Man City away, just after Ipswich at home, if we only pick up 1 win over these next 4 games, I mean, you're talking about a terrible run of form now.
I mean, yeah, but if you don't, then we're talking about
I'm talking about if we do.
The end of the day, we're 7 wins of the last 9 games. Mm-hmm. So we're on a good run of form right now. If we enter, yes, I know we've lost 2 games, but if we go on a bad run of form, it depends on the context. If we're getting battered and we play like we did yesterday for all those games and it's terrible, then that's a worrying situation and big questions have to be asked. But for me,
we talk about 7 wins in the last 8, but actually the Premier League form is not good at all.
Well,
we won 2 games back to back against Brentford and Manchester United. Now we've lost 2 games back to back in the Premier League.
The last 5 we've won 3 and we've won 3 and lost 2.
West Ham, I forgot about that. So we've lost 2 of our last 5. We've lost 2 out of our last 3 Premier League games.
Yeah.
which is not great at all, against Brighton and against Crystal Palace. Then we got 2 wins against Man United and Brentford, and before that we lost 2 in a row against Arsenal and Newcastle.
You can adjust stats however you want. We've won 3 of our last 5.
We've lost 4 games.
Yeah,
in
we've
8.
Lost 4 games. Yeah, in 9.
That's nearly half our games.
Yeah, we've lost 4, but we've also won 4.
Yeah,
that's the kind of team we are. We don't really draw. We kind of win or we lose, and it's frustrating when we lose, but when you win, we win well. And hopefully, the way we play,
it's too up and down. These results in the Premier League are just way too up and down.
The results are. I don't think in general the performances are. I think the general performances have been pretty good.
I would say correct up to the Newcastle game, but performance levels have dropped in the Premier League. Apart from, the home games have been fine. I've got no problem with us at home at the moment. I think when they're in a comfortable situation, home settings, they seem to be able to perform. But once they get into an uncomfortable setting away from home in the scary places like Selhurst Park and the Amex, they just let their asses fall out of themselves.
Yeah, and Ange pointed that out. Well, didn't put it the way you did, but he did point out that that's a problem. That it's a young team and they've got to deal with that and they've got to learn from that. And at the moment, they are not dealing with that very well, and they're not dealing with adversity. They're not dealing with the change of game states and different challenges. And that is going to happen with a young team. You're going to get a bit of inconsistency, but doesn't mean these things can't be worked out, and doesn't mean these things can't be sorted. And I'm still pretty happy with the direction we're going. And I know the results don't read pretty at the moment, but if I'm going from what I can see on what's happening on the pitch, I think in general I'm still pretty happy. Even this season, I know 4 wins, there's 4 losses and 4 wins, but I don't think that tells the full story of all the games. And I still think that, given how we're playing, I'm still pretty positive about where we're heading so far this season, in my opinion, even with the results, a lot of them not going our way.
Yeah, you say that, but the last 2 losses were complete deserved losses, and we were shocking in both those games. So it feels like throughout this season we started off really well, performing well. Maybe the losses that went against us we didn't deserve, but now these last 2 losses, by God, we deserve those losses.
Yeah,
we've been shocking in these last 2 away games.
That's something we have to learn from.
Will we learn from it though?
That's Ange's job hinges on that. I think we will, but that's Premier League football is not easy. It's not like you learn and then you just go and win the next game. There's different challenges, and especially when you've got a young squad like we do. They're still learning. A lot of them are still quite new to the Premier League. They've had a season in it, but they're still very, very young. So it's cool. I think we're going to have these problems. Even if you look at that Pochettino team that challenged Leicester, I was looking back at it a few weeks ago. Like that first half of the season, like in the first 16 games, we won something like 5 games or 6 games. For a large part of that season, we had a lot of draws. We didn't lose that too many, but we had a lot of draws out in the first 16 games. So after 16 games, a lot of people probably sitting there thinking we've had 6 wins in the first 16 games. Poch has to go, all that kind of stuff. And then we really found our consistency, and that was also very much a nature of the Poch team, didn't it? We always found our consistency around November, December time, and there was a lot of games coming thick and fast, and we can really get into the season. And a lot of times we went on a really great run between November time and February, and that's where we really got a lot of our points. And so you just got to be a bit patient. I know it's frustrating.
The difference between then and now is I feel like the quality in the league is a lot better now. And what did Leicester win the league on? They won the league on high 70s or low 80s.
They won on 81 points.
81 points, right? So what would have top 4 have got? They would have got 70 points or something like that, maybe a bit
70s
less.
70s every year.
You look at it, right? You look at, I don't even know what the top 4 get. It might have been lower than that year.
We finished 3rd with 71. So
you look at it and the quality in the league right now. You look at the whole top 10, and you don't see a bad team there. Mm-hmm. And Spurs can't continue to put in these performances if we have any ambitions of top 4.
See, that's where what you're saying is actually probably not the point you're making, because you're right, every team is good, which means everyone's going to drop points, which means everyone's going to find it hard to get consistency, which means the team that does find consistency is going to they're going to kind of run away with it. We need to make sure we're that team. But I really believe everyone is going to be dropping points this season. And I think that's already happening. Every team is fine. I know, obviously, the top teams, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City. I mean, even Arsenal recently been dropping points. Liverpool at the moment doing very well. Man City. But I think for that fourth spot, or even it could be fifth, depending on, fourth and fifth. Fifth could be Champions League this season, depending on how teams do in Europe. I think those two spots are very much up for grabs. And I think it's going to, whoever gets it will probably be an inconsistent team.
Yeah, that's fine. And that's all well and good. But when you're dropping points to every single team that you play in the top 10, it's not going to work. We've lost to every team that we've played against in the top 10 this year.
We have to fix that. It's only 9 games in. We have to fix that.
We've lost to, who have we lost to? We've lost to Arsenal. We've lost to Brighton, and we beat Brentford. Newcastle aren't even in the top 10. They're 12, but we did lose to them. We beat Brentford, who are 9th. So credit to us there, I guess.
Look, it's 9 games in. All these things you could throw at the team at the moment. Let's see how we are after 19 games, and then make a real assessment about how we're doing against top half and all that kind of stuff. After 9 games, I think it's too early to say that's how it is always going to be going forward. A lot of things can change over the season, and look, it's after yesterday. It's tough to see the positives, 100%, and I get that losing to a team in 18th, especially how we lost, is difficult to take. But I really believe that this team can find consistency. I really believe we can go on a bit of a run, and we just have to make sure we don't overblow the bad times, because I really believe there will be some good times coming. I really believe that.
I really hope so, because I love Ange. I love what he's about, and he can make a few changes in games tactically, which has been proven in the last couple of away games in Brighton and Brentford. But we need to figure this out fast, because we've got some really important games coming up. We've got Man City this coming week in the Carabao Cup, and I bet you we go win that game now. I just bet you we go win that game with Man City making a lot of changes. But this Villa game is actually really big next weekend, because we sit 5 points behind Villa at the moment?
I think it's
Can
5.
we afford to go 8 points behind them at this early stage of the season?
Probably not, to be honest. I don't think that's a good thing. But
at home, I always have confidence, though. If this was away from home, then I'd be a lot more worried.
Even if you look at our 2 games into Villa last season, obviously we won 4-0 away, but at home we should have been about 4-0 up before they came back and ended up winning the game. So, and also you got to remember what team we had out that day. So look, I think we can beat them. Villa just drew at home to Bournemouth on the weekend as well, so it wasn't a great result for them. So look, there's no reason why we can't win that game. But obviously it's a big game, and Villa are not an easy team. For sure, they're a great team, and they've got their own ambitions. They're having a great season so far, going, I think, level on points of Arsenal at the moment. So that goes to show how good they are. But I know on a day how good we can be, especially at home. So no reason why we can't win.
Well, there you have it. That is our match review for the Crystal Palace 1-0 win over Tottenham.